Thanks for watching The Thought Criminals, named after the resistance to the totalitarian thought police of George Orwell's 1984, which we now refer to as being woke. I'm your host, Rachel Alexander. I'm a weekly contributor to Townhall and other sites and the editor of Intellectual Conservative. And this is my mall, Ralph Benko, who worked in or with the Reagan, W. Bush, and Trump White Houses. He's a weekly columnist for Newsmax. He's the co-author of The Capitalist Manifesto and co-founder and executive chairman of the 185,000 member Capitalist League Facebook group. Well, today we are going to talk about an article I wrote about Attorney General from Arizona, Mark Brnovich, who is a good friend of me and Ralph, suing.
He's a good friend of you, and I've had exactly one brief brunch with him, thanks to you. So let's not overstate the intimacy of our relationship.
I sense some nervousness here about being associated with my good friend.
No. I'm honored to have a relationship with the next senator from Arizona, and I am extreme. I was flattered to have met him. You remember, I had T-shirts printed up called "Feel the Burn."
That's why it seems like you're a good friend.
Well, let's just put it this way: I'm a great admirer of his, and I look forward to his service in the United States Senate. But let's not overstate the intimacy of the relationship. He's your buddy. I'm just a fanboy.
You're along for the ride, okay. So right. After we discussed him daring to take on them and their cronies at the big Democrat law firms in Arizona, we're going to move on to a couple of Ralph's pieces. He's got one on the next likely governor of Maryland, since that's where Ralph is. He knows the inside scoop on what's going on. And then we're going to talk about the Russian Orthodox Church and Ukraine. So to begin with my article, which I can already tell I'm under attack because nobody ever dares to take on the big, deep pockets, taxpayer pockets of public universities, especially not the biggest law firms in the state, controlled by Democrats who are cozy with the state bar. So as you can guess, after Brnovich decided to sue ASU over a couple of these things that I'm about to explain, ASU responded by filing a bar complaint against him, of course. So what he's taking him on is escalating tuition. Basically, he discovered that over a period of a few years, ASU increased tuition by over 300%. Okay, this is not just, 50%. This isn't even just twice as much. This is over 300%. And at the same time, he also sued them for allowing illegal immigrants to get in-state tuition. Okay, if you are an American citizen from any other state other than Arizona, and you attend school in Arizona, you are paying more for tuition than a legal immigrant in Arizona pays. So he sued over that, and he actually won on that aspect of it. The other aspect, the higher tuition, that hasn't gone anywhere at this stage. And then the final thing he sued them over was a corrupt deal that ASU made with this Omni Hotel. Basically, this is becoming a thing around the country where these public universities use their tax-exempt status instead of selling land to big business, where big business would then pay property taxes. These public universities are leasing part of their property. So the big business gets this great tax break, and taxpayers are stuck, picking up the remainder of taxes to pay for things like schools in the area. And Brnovich had initially had a few defeats when he was suing over this, but the courts are finally turning around. The Arizona Supreme Court has remanded this back to the trial court, which initially ruled against him. And I just want to read to you some of the benefits that ASU was giving this Omni Hotel. ASU spending $19.5 million constructing a conference center that'll accompany the hotel, which ASU will only be allowed to use 7 days a year. And then another 30 million is being spent building a parking structure, and 275 of the 1,200 spots go to the hotel. And so Brnovich said this is basically a gift of 8 million for those spots, and the hotel gets exclusive use and gets to keep revenue from the spaces.
Okay, well, look, Brnovich and I don't agree on all policies, but I think he's an absolute stand-up guy, hard-hitting, a warrior on behalf of the people of Arizona. And in these particular areas, I think he is on very solid ground, both politically and I hope legally. So the fact that, first of all, I am appalled that ASU has tripled its tuition. Okay, they're a state university. They're supposed to be affordable. Okay, what's up with that? And I don't know any of the details or the specifics.
The Arizona Constitution says that higher public ed shall be as nearly free as possible. And get this, the courts that have ruled against him on that, they said that he did not have standing to sue. Okay, if our attorney general, okay, can't be involved to uphold the Constitution of our state, who gets to do that?
Well, I don't want to get into the minutia of things like legal standing to sue. Okay, but just in terms of doing the right, Herb Stein. There was a famous economist, not Herb Stein. He was a famous Walter Heller. Okay, on I think it was May 7th, which I could look it up. I have it in my calendar, which I have identified as an annual holiday called Do the Right Thing Day, testified before the United States Congress in the 1980s, saying sometimes you have to just put aside principle and do what's right. And so irrespective of the technicalities as to whether the Attorney General has the standing to sue the state university over things like tuition policy, it's wrong for them to be tripling the tuition. And by the way, I don't know what the story with them is, but a lot of colleges have priced themselves into the stratosphere. And where does the money go? It doesn't go to teachers. It goes to piles and piles of administrators, provosts, deputy thises and that's, all of whom are basically just have cushy bureaucratic jobs that don't really add anything to the quality of the education. So and also the idea that these universities they're nonprofits or they're even state universities, and therefore they're not liable to pay taxes, and therefore they create these real estate empires, whether they're for lease or whether they're just for themselves, in order to take advantage of this tax loophole that it doesn't really advance their mission of teaching people to become good citizens and to become professionally qualified. So I really do believe that the universities, and I'm not even talking about ASU, I know nothing about these details, but the American collegiate system and university system has become a money machine that's corrupt, that is lining the pockets of a bunch of school administrators and to an extent faculty who are more interested in getting a cushy job than they are in preparing the next generation to become successful to become successful at both at work and as citizens. So I think Brnovich is onto something really important politically, even if there are technical problems with enforcing it by litigation. And that's just another really great reason why he belongs to the United States Senate, where he can help to create national policy as opposed to a more narrower franchise in the state of.
Well, I want him out of the AG's office and into the US Senate so the state bar can't come after him anymore, because that's what they do to attorneys in public office, as you and I know really well. They just file bar complaints against you, and the left-wing attorneys control the state bars. And so I'm just concerned that even though you know, he was able to get this bar complaint dismissed, there are a whole bunch more that are going to be on their way. You know, as everyone who knows me knows, my former boss, Maricopa County Attorney Andrew Thomas, he beat 13 bar complaints until the Maricopa County supervisors came after him and they filed a bar complaint, and that's the one he finally was not able to beat. So if Brnovich can just hold in there, you know, for, you know, what, 8 more months, then he will be in the US Senate and they won't be able to tarnish him and touch him. But I'm so concerned because I don't even know if I told you yet, Ralph, today, but the first attorney involved with the January 6th protesters at the US Capitol has just been disbarred. So it's starting to happen to people connected to Trump. As I predicted after January 6th, I predicted all those attorneys trying to help Trump are the left's going to go after them, and they already are. And so when you have somebody like Brnovich who's willing to stand up to the establishment, he's going to become the juiciest target. But let's move on, because you have a couple columns. I want to make sure we get to both of them. Your column about hopefully the new Maryland governor. Tell us what is so.
I love Kelly Schulz. I met her one time, but you know, here is a woman who is currently, or was until she resigned to run for governor. She was the state secretary of commerce. Before she was the state secretary of commerce, she was the state secretary of labor, appointed by Larry Hogan, who is a conservative Republican governor in the deep blue state of Maryland, in which I'm honored to live, with an enormous popularity rating. His ratings are something in the 70%. And when Kelly was a delegate, she was part of the Maryland legislature, where she developed a reputation of really being able to get stuff done, which is rare for a junior delegate from the minority party. And when Hogan said, you know, I'd like you to serve in my administration, she said, oh, I want to be Secretary of Labor. And he said, that's the worst job in my cabinet, because what he meant was it was the most thankless job in the cabinet. And that did not faze her one bit. She's not afraid of tackling hard jobs, but walking the cat backward a little further, she was a single mom barmaid and waitress who worked her way up.
Don't you dare compare to AOC. Oh my gosh, she's going to go down in my eyes.
She is our AOC. No, I'm not comparing her. I'm not comparing her to AOC. She
actually has some brains, okay?
I'm not comparing her to AOC, okay? AOC was not
too well by now. I'm sure it was about to come out.
No, because AOC was not a single mom, okay? AOC was, a young bartender and barista. I give her credit for that. But Kelly was a bartender and a waitress as a single mom supporting her kids. And then through sheer talent and hard work and determination, she worked her way into the state legislature, and then she worked her way into the cabinet, and then she worked her way up in the cabinet to cabinet secretary. But wait, there's more. So what I love her grit and her gumption and her working class credentials, okay? She knows what it's like to have to struggle to make the rent, to make ends meet. And she's done it, and I've never heard her complain. I've never heard any reports saying she complained about it. She buckled down and did the job. And then once she became a member of the cabinet, she devoted herself to creating apprenticeships. And in the course of her, tenure there as a labor secretary and commerce secretary, the number of apprenticeships that Maryland created rose to 10,000. That means 10,000 people, 10,000 people, young people, middle-aged people, working people, had a chance to learn and move from unskilled to semi-skilled to well-paid skilled labor. Because if you don't have the luxury of going to college, if you're not privileged, okay, the way to work your way up the economic ladder is by apprenticeships. It's a proven fact. And she put her weight, she put the weight of her office behind that, and she was able to help 10,000 people work their way up from low-paid, unskilled labor to better paid semi-skilled labor to well-paid skilled labor through this apprenticeship program. Not only did I consider that to be brilliant, but I contrasted her to your favorite, your favorite most recent Republican president, Donald Trump, who became famous after his casino bankruptcies and whatever, as the host of The Apprentice and The Celebrity Apprentice, which was reality TV. And by the way, Trump made millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars off of his celebrity from having hosted The Apprentice. Okay, and hey, I
think people who do reality TV for the most part are very bright. It's an easy way to become really successful. You know, some of us just don't want to air all of our personal garbage on TV.
I'm not knocking that. It was a great hustle for him. He did very, very well. He made himself a lot of money as the quote reality, as the star of the quote reality TV show The Apprentice. But all I said was, hey, Kelly Schulz, who is now running in the primary for the nomination for Maryland governor, really created 10,000 apprenticeships. How great is that? I give her lots of props for that. She won my heart, and she's got a couple of, she has a couple of adversaries, a delegate named Cox, C-O-X, who Trump has endorsed, and a perennial candidate named Robin Ficker, who is best known for being a heckler at local basketball games. So she's in a competitive race. She's raised over $1 million. I'm very impressed by how hard she is running and on what a great platform she's running as a good center-right candidate. And I just wanted to give a little national attention to her grit, having worked her way up from a single mom waitress to a front-runner gubernatorial candidate, hopefully governor, and to give her lots of props for her work in creating these, in contributing to the creation of these 10,000 apprenticeships, whereby working people like you and me can rise into a comfortable middle-class life. So there you go.
Well, it sounds like what she's done with the apprenticeship should be copied around the country.
Yeah.
What I'm curious about, and I know that the outgoing governor has endorsed her, what do you think are her chances in the primary against the Trump endorsed candidate? And what do you think her chances are at beating the Democrat in the general?
Okay, well, let me answer that backwards. Okay, what are her chances of winning against the Democrat in the general election? First of all, I honestly believe, based upon a lot of evidence, I'm not an optimist about these things, that the 2022 off-year election is going to be a red tide, and that with President Biden's popularity sinking down to alarming levels, that not only are the Democrats, and not only are the Republicans going to pace the Democrats in the Congress and maybe in the Senate, but the state races are going, the Republicans are going to have a tailwind behind them. And number one, and number two is Hogan who has endorsed her, won in his, he's term limited, won in 2018 by against Ben Jealous by almost 10 points, which is usually considered a landslide, whereas Trump lost 2-1 in Maryland in 2020. He got creamed. Nobody loses that big. He lost to Biden by something like 60-30, or it was ridiculous. So in the general election, Hogan's endorsement is political money in the bank, whereas Trump's endorsement is, the opposite. So if Schulz manages to get herself nominated, I think her chances of actually winning in this red tide with Larry Hogan's endorsement, he's endorsed her, and with his active support, I think she's got the best chance of beating the Democratic nominee, whoever it happens to be. There are a whole lot of people striving for the Democratic nomination. And so it's going to be a fractured base anyway, but I really think that Schulz has the very best chance of winning that, given Hogan's popularity and Hogan's endorsement of her. So
that is fascinating, considering here in Arizona, where Trump has endorsed Carrie Lake for governor, that's just massively putting her over the top. Like none of her other opponents in the primary even have a chance. She's still outpolling all of her other opponents.
I know that, but if you're looking nationwide, a ton of Trump's endorsed candidates are stumbling badly, and Trump's endorsement does not seem to be the magic, bibbidi bobbidi boo thing that will secure people the nomination. Lots and lots of the people he's been endorsing have either dropped out or he's unendorsed them because they were floundering or losing. And so if you actually look at the list of the Trump endorsees, a Trump endorsement, everybody wants it, but there's no proof whatsoever that a Trump endorsement is any kind of
no. Previously, his endorsements have been pretty good. So this is news to me, hearing that they might not pan out. But okay, maybe they're taking.
But that's because you get your news from One American News. Okay,
I actually don't watch that because you have to pay for it. I watch Newsmax.
Got it. Okay, okay. Well, Newsmax, that's the gold standard. Since I write for them, I have to tell you, you can't do any better as a source of news than Newsmax. Okay. But they do tilt toward Trump a little bit, and I know you do too. So you two should be very happy together. So Trump's endorsement of Mr. Cox is probably political. Is probably not as big as not as big a electoral. It's not electoral advantage in the general election. It's probably somewhat in the primary because a lot of Republican voters in Maryland still like Donald Trump. Go figure. That said, the endorsement alone is not enough. Kelly Schulz has raised over $1 million, and Mr. Cox has raised a much smaller sum. And as I think it was Tip O'Neill once said, money is the mother's milk of politics. It doesn't go into their pockets. It goes into radio, TV, cable advertising, and so forth. So the fact that Kelly has massively outraised her rivals in terms of the political fundraising for the primary is another advantage that she has. And while she's not taking anything for granted, okay, I think that the chance of her winning the nomination is excellent.
Okay, and if we had more time, I want to get into details as to, how conservative is she and why did Trump endorse her opponent? But you know what? Let's just move on. We can always look that up later. And
he endorsed her opponent because he hates Hogan, and Kelly Schulz is a Hogan protege. Okay, it's that simple. Hogan is a rival to Trump. He's a dark horse prospective candidate for 2024. He's no Trump loyalist. And so simply by Kelly's loyalty to Hogan made her, painted a target on her so far as Trump was concerned. And so he went and endorsed someone who was a Trump loyalist, because that's all Trump cares about. He doesn't care if they're conservative. Look at his endorsement of Amos Oz, the famous gun-controlling pro-choice guy.
No, I'm not going to let you get away with that. Okay, Carrie Lake has been a Democrat and donated to Democrats, right?
And Trump has too. Trump's been a Democrat and donated to Democrats too. Trump's just about Trump. So.
And Ronald Reagan was a Democrat. So if Dr. Oz
that was a long
coming around and becoming more conservative, then I have no problem giving somebody a second chance.
That's very kind of you to give Donald Trump a second chance. I'm sure he's very appreciative of it.
You gave Ronald Reagan a second chance.
He converted to the one true faith of Republicanism before I was born. Okay, so the fact that he was an FDR Democrat way before he got into politics is like, no, there's not. And by the way, Mr. Reagan, for whom I worked, one of the great honors of my life when he was president, basically said, I didn't leave the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party left me. And it's true. The Democratic Party moved so far left that he moved out from under any sensible people like Ronald Reagan. So he was with the Democrat. He was a Democrat when the Democrats were conservative. And once they turned into woke snowflake monsters, then what else was the guy to do? He became a Republican. I was a Democrat. Shameful confession. I was born and raised a Democrat. And then Jimmy Carter so horrified me that in 1984, I became the head of upstate New York Democrats for Reagan. And then after Reagan got reelected, I said, time to wake up and smell the coffee, time to join the Republican Party. And I switched parties.
Okay, fine. But does that mean you're just going to blow off anyone who's been a Democrat in recent years? I mean, look at Brandon Straka, the founder of the Walk Away movement. I mean, he was a Democrat in recent years, and I still 100% support that guy.
Okay, yeah, no. The fact that you were once a Democrat, I was once a Democrat, Reagan's once a Democrat, that's not determinative. Okay, the fact that Trump was a Democrat and then a Republican and donating to Hillary Clinton and stuff like that, I get it. He's a businessman and he is a pragmatist. He doesn't actually have principles. Okay, I get that.
I think he used to be pragmatic, and I think he's actually turned into a truly principled conservative at this point.
Let's devote a whole episode to that if he decides to run again, God forbid.
We will. I just hope it won't get banned. Okay, so moving on to your intriguing column of calling out the Russian Orthodox Church when it comes to Ukraine.
The Russian Orthodox Patriarch, not the church. Okay, I'm a huge fan of the Orthodox Church, including the Russian Orthodox Church, but Patriarch Kilian, who is the head of the Russian Orthodox Church, the Pope of the Russian Orthodox Church, is an old KGB guy who is solidly in Putin's pocket. And I consider Putin to be a Russian nihilist, which was an actual thing, who is anti-Christian and a Jacobin anarchist. And the fact that the patriarch of the Russian Orthodox Church is giving this antichrist of Vladimir Putin cover is shameful. And I call upon all the people of faith, Christian, Catholic, Orthodox, Jewish, happy Passover, by the way, and Good Friday to you, should join together to call out Patriarch Kilian as basically a disgrace to the faith, and to put the pressure on Putin to basically be shown up as somebody who is an anti-Christian, not a Christian, and his pretense of standing up for Christian values and traditional values is a pretext and a fraud, and he needs to be called out for that. And if we all of us people of faith, call him out loud enough, long enough, hard enough, that it has a fighting chance of turning the Russian people against Putin. He can go retire to his billion-dollar palace on the Black Sea and live happily ever after. And his successor, whoever that might be, can withdraw the troops from Ukraine and end the genocide. I believe while the left makes a big pretense of being social justice warriors, I'm calling upon the right and all people of faith, whatever their political posture, to become spiritual justice warriors. And that's what my column at Newsmax called for.
Well, as a Jewish person, I think it's pretty cool for you to be referencing the Antichrist and, bringing up that aspect of it. A lot of people today are too afraid to ever talk about the Antichrist. And, it's daring to even bring about that comparison, but I think it was very clever on your part. And I think it will resonate with a lot of Christians. I'm just kind of concerned about, there are a handful of Christians that seem to be duped by this, and they're just kind of going along with, Putin's lies and, claiming that Ukraine is anti-Semitic. And I mean, he's just saying this off the wall stuff. And is everybody just so scared of being labeled an anti-Semitic that they're going to go along with Putin instead?
That's horrible. And I think that we need to speak up, all of us, from the pews to the pulpits. Jews, and by the way, forgive me for quibbling, but while yes, technically I'm a Jewish person, I much prefer to be called a Jew, because there are no Jewish cats or dogs or trees. Okay, if you're a Jew, you're a person. End of story. I know a bunch of you guys like to call us Jewish people because you think it's more polite, but really it's redundant. And so don't pussyfoot. We're Jews, and I'm a Jew, and I'm proud. And so I would just prefer you call me a Jew. That's a badge of honor. You don't have to
I
modify.
literally have gotten into that habit in the last couple of years because of all the political correctness out
Yeah,
there.
well, I expect more from you, Rachel.
Well, this is the thought criminals. You're right. We are supposed to say things that we are not, considered politically.
Right. We're the thought criminals. So please call me a Jew. It's what I am. And yes, I'm a Jewish person, but do I call you a Christian person? No. Do I have Catholic friends, Catholic persons? No. You're a Christian. They're Catholics. My Islamic buddies are Islamic. They're not Islamic people. They're Islamic. I am a Jewish person, but give me a break.
Now, how do you feel? Okay, my closest male friend, he's also Jewish. He prefers to be called Heb. What do you think about that?
I'm okay with that. That's short for Hebrew, but that's kind of like gay people wanting to be called queer. It's a little edgy. They like to be edgy in your face. I would not, being myself a Heb, I have liberty. Okay, I would not encourage most Christians to call us Hebes unless they're invited to, because it does have a pejorative connotation. Okay, in his case, he's just being hip. That's okay. So call him a Heb. I won't be offended if you call me a Heb. I get it. Okay, but for most of you Christian people, I just recommend that you call us Jews. Okay.
Okay, so I think that pretty much wraps it up, unless you had any final words on the Ukraine war.
Yes, I'm just calling with, look, the Ukrainian army and the Ukrainian is doing heroic things and winning battle after battle, but Putin is becoming crueler and more and more brutal, and all of his defeats just make him even more brutal. I believe that the only way to bring an end to this is not through military victories, which are necessary but not sufficient, but we need to change the hearts and minds of the Russian people. I love Russians. I'm a Russophile. Okay, they have been propagandized and misled by Vladimir Putin. We need to bring them the truth through whatever mechanisms we have, that Vladimir Putin is a fraud. He is not standing up for the true faith. He's not standing up for traditional values. He's using that as a pretext to kill innocent people in a broad spectrum and to bring ruination to Ukraine. It's wrong. It's evil. Let's call him out and let us call him what he is: a Russian nihilist, anti-Christian, and maybe even antichrist. And if we do this if enough of us do this, from Catholics to Christians to Jews to Muslims, if enough of us do this and do it consistently enough and loudly enough, I believe we will touch the heart of the Russian people, and they will withdraw support from Putin, who can go to his billion-dollar Black Sea palace and live happily ever after in seclusion.
That's a really nice ending for him. I probably wouldn't be that nice, but I do want to end and just say, my lefty friend actually agrees with me on the Russia-Ukraine war, and it's actually refreshing. So, I think there's some hope that we're gonna, get a lot of unity on this issue. I think so. Good. That's it for this week.
Let's get the religious left condemning the fraudulent faith of Vladimir Putin, while we on the religious right do it too. So let's join, sing Kumbaya and call out Putin for the fraud he is.
Awesome. Thanks everybody for watching. We'll see you next week.
Thanks, Rachel.